What if the characters of Game of Thrones would go to Hogwarts? Which houses would they get sorted in? Well, that is something that I'm going to try to judge. Before I begin, a few notes. In the earlier versions of this nature, I've always ended with the main protagonists. However, given the way this franchise has been set up, that is impossible to do. Game of Thrones does not have a main protagonist after all. That is why I take these characters on alphabetic order based on their first name. Next, don't expect me to do all characters, there are simply too many. I just picked approx 30 characters, and if I missed characters that I really shouldn't have missed, let me know. Now, I'm also basing this on the HBO TV series and not on the novels. When it comes to the novels, I've only read part of the first book, while the series I have seen up to the point that Jon Snow was murdered for the Night's Watch. I know a few things that will come after though, so I can take that in my judgment. And I have been told a few things of how some characters differ from the novels and the series, and I cannot fully take into my judgment as that is hard to confirm, but I will take a look at those things that I know of. Before I judge the first character, first a quick overview of the founders and the quality they value the most for their students. Godric Gryffindor, courage and chivalry. Salazar Slytherin, ambition, cunning and leadership skills. Rowena Ravenclaw, intelligence and creativity. And lastly, Helga Hufflepuff. She would take anyone the others wouldn't accept, but her house is also known for hard working, wisdom, not being too judgmental, and devotion. Now that you know all that, let's get the sorting ceremony started. Aemon Targaryan might well be one of the most badass characters in the entire series. I mean, he's one of the few, if not the only one, to die of old age, which appears to be a very extremely rare achievement in the world of Westeros. Now, for his character, he seems most of all to be standing out for his wisdom. He was wise enough to acknowledge that if they had to behead all the Night Watchers who had sex with a woman, the wall would only be guardless by headless men. Somehow he indirectly admits to be guilty of that one himself. He tries to refrain from black-white thinking and to seek nuance. And whenever he casts judgment, he does try to be fair. He also appears quick to acknowledge that he may have judged too quickly though. This most of all pointed out when Sam recited his oath to him, and also added that this means the wildlings are included under the Night Watch's protection. Although his body has become a wreck, he keeps doing the task he's been given to the best of his abilities. So in the end, I had to sort him into the house of Helga Hufflepuff. Arya Stark. Well, I must be honest, she's my favorite female character. And if I have to pick a favorite character regardless of gender, she's only second to Tyrion Lannister. At first, before she's truly confronted with the cruelty of the world, she's merely a naughty tomboy, also showing some guts in showing better skills in fighting than loads of her brothers. Since her unladylike behavior turns her a bit into an outcast, she develops a very close bond with Jon Snow, believed to be a bastard at the time, and that made him an outcast too. However, when she finally gets confronted with the cruelty of the world, she changes into a vengeful, homicidal maniac who mercilessly seeks out everybody who was cruel to her, her family or her loved ones, even summing up their names as a kind of a prayer. She's also very manipulative, as shown by naming Jaqen H'ghar as the one to die, forcing him to do her bidding in killing her primary target, which she originally didn't want to do. And she is also not above abandoning people who helped her if there is a reason to have a grudge against them. What does make her stand out, though, is that she does not even attempt to hide what she has become. Somehow she even appears to take pride in being the cold-blooded, homicidal maniac. Now, in the HBO TV series, we see she still holds a code of honor, even shown when she eradicates the House of Frey by making sure that the servant girls are spared, as she does not want to take the life of those who did not do anything wrong. But from what I have heard, her novel counterpart is by far more darker than that, as even said that she is slowly losing her humanity and that she would eventually not hold back to start killing people without any form of provocation at all. Now I think it will come to no surprise that I had to sort her into the house of Salazar Slytherin. Now, she might well scare the crap out of Lord Voldemort himself, even being a muggle and thus not having any magic abilities. She's more deadly than the Avada Kedavra curse. Asha Greyjoy, to those who only saw the TV series known as Yara Greyjoy, much to the displeasure of the fans of the novels. This is also the reason why I put her into my indexation list as Asha and not as Yara. Before I start discussing her character, first the reason why the TV series changed her name. The name of the wildling Asha was the reason. Depending on your exact accent with which you speak the English language, the names Asha and Asha may sound exactly the same, and the developers of the TV series merely wanted to prevent any possible kind of confusion. Now, as far as I can judge Asha, or Yara, she appears to be a courageous woman, a skilled warrior, and a very skilled leader. All the men take orders from her, showing her strength as a leader. When the time comes that she realizes that her father does not take her brother for what he is, actually even putting him up to a task that he is absolutely not up to, she does have the courage to start thinking, eventually causing her to alienate from her father. I think I'll sort her into the house of Godric Gryffindor. Benjen Stark is, for me, more based on feeling than serious judgment. I must admit, though, that he is a very clever man, who even managed to outwit Tyrion Lannister.
Listen, Benjen, may I call you Benjen?
Tell me what you like.
I'm not sure what I've done to offend you. I have great admiration for the Night's Watch. I have great admiration for you as First Ranger.
You know, my brother once told me that nothing someone says before the word but really counts.
But I don't believe that giants and ghouls and white walkers are lurking beyond the wall. I believe that the only difference between us and the wildlings is that when that wall went up, our ancestors happened to live on the right side of it.
You're right. The wildlings are no different from us. A little rougher, maybe. For they're made of meat and bone. I know how to track them and I know how to kill them. It's not the wildlings giving me sleepless nights. You've never been north of the wall, so don't tell me what's out there.
Gotta admit, that one was razor sharp. However, nothing someone says before the word but really counts. But it takes more than just one stroke of brilliance to get yourself sorted into the house of Rowena Ravenclaw. Even the biggest idiot could then end up there, as even the biggest idiot has sometimes a stroke of true brilliance. What this clip does also show is that Benjen acknowledges the wildlings for what they are. That could actually plead for Hufflepuff if he didn't mention killing them so easily. He disappears from the scene too quickly and only returned at a point where I didn't see the series anymore. So I am just following my feelings here, and my feelings say Gryffindor. But perhaps either the novels or the episodes I have not yet seen may change my mind. Bran is a bit of a harder character to place. Of course, his disability due to Jaime throwing him out of the window doesn't really help, but I don't think the Sorting Hat will take that into account. Although I do see that he tries to make the best out of things. I am not fully sure if I understood his part of the story best, but my feeling says that the role he plays asks most of all for wisdom, and for that reason I'll settle for the time being for Hufflepuff. When it comes to Brienne, I have two houses in mind, but I still made my decision pretty quickly. Her sworn loyalty for the ones she chose to serve and sworn oath to is almost admirable and seems to plead for Hufflepuff. But in the end, I think I'll settle for Gryffindor, due to the courage required and her willingness to face the dangers it brings. Even her willingness to risk her life for the good cause. Catelyn Stark, also known as Cat, is a woman I can only describe in two words: wife and mother. Her only true concern is the well-being of her husband and her children, and she works hard to do whatever it takes to do for her children what she must. There are a few things I do need to take in order, as they brought me in doubt about the house I'm going to place her in, and might even require me to come to a different house. Now, my biggest concern is how she hated Jon Snow for him being the living proof that Ned had sex with a different woman. Now, of course, we now know that the story of Jon being a bastard due to Ned going off with a different woman was a lie set up to protect Jon. But remember that Cat never knew this, for that was only revealed after she was killed. She does, however, acknowledge herself that although she had the full right to be angry about it, it was not fair that she took it out on Jon Snow, as he never asked to be a bastard. Her honesty to herself about this does bring me back to the house I was planning her for. However, what really made me think is the very important storyline part of her character that was completely removed from the TV series. And that is that after she was killed at the Red Wedding and brought back to life by the Brotherhood Without Banners, is that she was also transformed this way into the infamous Lady Stoneheart, who kills whoever crosses her path as somebody who did anything bad to her family, and she does so without remorse. Since the series cut this completely, I could not fully take into account as far as this video is concerned. However, when they kept it, I will try if I can still justify it. I placed her in Hufflepuff. Her hard work and most of all devotion to her family caused me to come to this decision, and I think if she actually underwent the transformation to Lady Stoneheart in the series as well, it would actually somehow speak for her devotion to her family and her role as a wife and a mother. It sounds a bit contradictory as I placed Arya into Slytherin for her murderous behavior. Well, that was one of the reasons, and I must admit that, but I must also say that the personalities of both ladies are, even though they are mother and daughter, completely not comparable with each other. And of course, where Arya seems to be more into sneaking and misleading people, Lady Stoneheart does not seem to be that way as far as I could find out. But remember, I didn't read the books far enough to be able to tell that folly. However, since this entire Lady Stoneheart portion was left out, we'll never know how this would have turned out into the series if they had put it in. And I judged the characters by the series and not the novels, so it does not really matter for the decision to place her into Hufflepuff. Yet, Lady Stoneheart seemed to me as a too important part of Cat's character to ignore as shamelessly as the creators of the TV series did. And that is why I still had to mention it. Cercei Lannister is of course a no-brainer. First of all, she doesn't have a brain. Well, and if she had one, she has never learned how to use it. Cercei is of course the most despicable woman in the series, and she might well be good competition to Dolores Umbridge, who is of course also a Slytherin. The big difference is perhaps that Umbridge doesn't literally fuck her way to the top, but that may have something to do with the age group the Harry Potter series was set up for. She manipulates her way to the top, all to get in power. She will be kind to those who can get her higher up, but abandon those who are of no more use to her, and is pretty eager to kill everyone who threatens her ambitions. She's even willing to play the game over the backs of her own children. Actually, she only cares about herself. Whenever she pops up, I feel nothing but anger. She's a very nasty piece of work. I wonder when she's about to speak Parseltongue. L'homme n'est ni l'ange ni bête, et le malheur veut qui veut faire l'ange fait la bête. I hope French people won't get insulted by my horrible French. It's a quote by Blaise Pascal meaning man is neither angel nor beast. And the unfortunate fact was that whoever wants to play the angel plays the beast. Now, in the case of Daenerys Targaryen, it really looks like she is wanting to play the angel by setting people free from slavery, by devoting herself to Khal Drogo. However, if we take a good look to her character, I really doubt she's really that good of a person. She can be rather tricky and even downright evil. One of her best stunts is pretending when she offers one of her dragons that she doesn't speak the language of the one taking over that dragon, eventually even commanding the dragon to kill him. And we see more and more that once she is able to show true freedom in how she acts, that the madness in her that she must have inherited from the Mad King really shows the true type of person she is. Of course, in her defense, it must be said that she snapped when her husband, called Drogo, whom I really got the feeling that she was more and more going to love him. But yet, the way she acted after his death was despicable. Also, how she worked out on the witch kind of lady who tried to save him, but actually played a trick on her as the call was already beyond saving. However, she basically also forced things here, so it is really a big debate who is at fault here. So in the end, the wonderful, selfless looking cover appears to hide a very dark, manipulative soul with hunger for power. Slytherin it will be. Davos Seaworth is one that got me in doubt between two houses. He is courageous, but in the end, what I saw most of all is that he always tries to be wise, which is not very easy, given that his lord Stannis is not exactly a wise man. It also speaks for him that he is not bothered at all with how Shireen has been maimed, and still treats her with dignity and respect, and he even accepts her as his teacher, despite him being old enough to be her father and maybe even her grandfather. Although humble, he does stand up for what is right, but he never let it go to his head. Although I kept Gryffindor in the back of my head due to his courage, his wisdom made me think that Hufflepuff signifies more the kind of man he actually is. Eddard Stark, more commonly known as Ned Stark, might well be the most important character, not the main protagonist though, as the series doesn't have one. But it was his death that set the chain of war and death in motion at an unstoppable rate, and that makes you wonder, of course, what kind of man he was. Well, he is an honorable man who stands up for what is right. Although he is Hand of the King, he didn't want to be, as he is not suited at all for politics, and he knows it. Which is, of course, why his naivety in things turning right as the law would want would eventually turn against him, getting his head chopped off in the process. Eddard is only one thing: a warrior sworn by the blade, fighting for his land. And all that he is disqualified him for Slytherin, I think. Now, accepting Arya for her tomboyish behavior, even allowing her sword fighting lessons, show a tendency for Hufflepuff. His deductions that all Baratheon children were actually inbred Lannisters show a tendency for Ravenclaw, Yet the habit that stands out most is his will to fight and protect his land and his people. And as such, I will go for Gryffindor in the end. Now, Jaime Lannister is a character who had me fooled due to two unforgivable stunts. First of all, throwing Bran out of the window, attempting to kill him when Bran finds out he was fucking his own sister Cercei. And the second time when he maims Ned Stark, causing him to use a cane for the rest of his life. As the story goes on though, he gets the chance to show his better side. And it turns out that Jaime is only a fighter doing what a fighter has to do. And as such, yeah, I'm still a bit in doubt, but I will stick with Gryffindor in the end. Slytherin, 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 Slytherin! And I don't think that as far as Joffrey Baratheon is concerned, any explanation is needed. Jon Snow. Well, he certainly won't go into Ravenclaw. Because after all, he knows nothing! Well, Jon Snow is most of all a man of courage, standing on the battlefield with his life. His attitude towards the wildlings, which would eventually result in his relationship with Ygritte, shows his open mind, but in the end, I'll still stick with Gryffindor. For the night is dark and full of terrors. Melissandre, also known as the Red Witch, might be taking the road to a noble destination, but the road she chose to travel is by far less noble. Manipulation with words, but even also in sexuality, are her ways to get things done, and sometimes with even more gruesome measures, in which sacrificing human life seems to be something she won't feel any remorse over. So in the end, her dark night full of terrors made it clear to me it will be Slytherin for her. There are characters about whom it's never certain if they are the good bad guy or the bad good guy, and Olenne Tyrell is one of those characters who fits that bill. To me, she's a clear Slytherin, but that doesn't mean she's not a good person in her own right. She's the matron of her family and did everything she could to protect them from harm. But the way she does that is through manipulation and, of course, murder. Although nobody will shed a tear about the death of Joffrey, yet the setup was sneaky, and when Tyrion was falsely accused, she didn't really come to his defense. Only when it's too late for her, when she accepted and drank poisoned wine offered by Jaime Lannister in order to escape the horrible execution methods Cercei had in mind for her, she revealed in the last sense of pride that she was Joffrey's murderer and insists on Jaime to tell Cercei that it was her, knowing that Cercei would no longer harm her and that she wouldn't be pleased about it. We can say that even in the face of death, she could deliver one last terrible trick. Salazar Slytherin would be proud of her. Well, I don't think it will come to anybody's surprise that I sorted Petyr Baelish, also known as Littlefinger, into Slytherin. Although he is not necessarily evil, he manages to survive by weaseling his way out of everything, helping people when it's in his best interest, yet betraying the same people openly all the same when that would be in his best interest. Of course, his legendary words, "I warned you not to trust me," when he betrayed Ned Stark, do at least show that he is honest about it, which might actually be one of his most noble features. His Achilles heel appears to be Cat Stark due to his feelings for her and actually showing the same feelings for her daughter Sansa. He won't betray them, and even appears to be willing to put his own life on the line to protect them. Yet the same ways of manipulation and treachery come forth in his protection measures over them. It may not be out of ambition for power or anything, but mainly his way of survival. Yet his cunning is worthy of the house of Salazar Slytherin. Now, I hope you won't be too disappointed, but I have not sorted Rickon Stark. The most important reason for that is because he didn't have enough screen time for me to allow me to get a proper picture of him, so I simply cannot sort him. Perhaps if I can find more about him, that I may redo this video and that I will then sort him into a house. But until now, I'll leave him unsorted, but due to his too important state in the story as a member of the House Stark, which is of course one of the most important families in the series, I did at least have to mention him, so that I won't get any reactions like "you forgot about him," because I didn't. I always want to stand on it that nobody is truly good or truly evil, but Ramsay Snow, who would later in the story become Ramsay Bolton, makes it hard for me to keep that one up. Now, where Cercei is the kind of character you'd love to kill out of pure hatred, Ramsay's sadistic nature and presenting his cruelty as if it were only a kind of a joke makes him at least somehow funny to watch in a TV series such as this. But if we take a proper look at him, he's just a pathetic bully lower than dirt. I think it's not a surprise that I placed him in Slytherin. However, being a sadist alone is not good enough to place him there. Well, when I try to analyze his character, I can only say he's a chicken, only daring to toy with people because he feels like he is untouchable. Yet, when reminded later that no matter if he was allowed to replace his bastard name, Ramsay Snow, into the officially recognized name Ramsay Bolton, that in blood he will always be a bastard, and should his father ever get an official wife pregnant, that the children coming out of that will always have more rights than he does. And, well, let's suffice to say that his reactions show him a true Slytherin after all. Robb Stark. I can't really deem him wise, intelligent, or cunning. He's basically just a warrior, and he just there to fight for his house and his lands. And that is basically all there is to it. The only Slytherin skill he might show is perhaps leadership. But in the end, and that is maybe also his downfall, as that did lead him not to accept any political marriage or that kind of thing, but just to follow his heart. But that is just he just going very straightforward, fighting for his land, his people, and well, basically that's it. Gryffindor. Well, there you have it. Robert Baratheon. I'll just put that Gryffindor shield back. Although he is more of a politician than Robb, he is actually more of a warrior than an actual true king. And I clearly get the feeling that it's more Cercei behind the curtain who is ruling the nation than it was Robert himself. Although he does appear dangerous for Cercei, hence the entire murder plot. But yeah, I really don't see where else I should place him, so I will leave it at that. But perhaps you guys have a better suggestion. I'd like to hear it. Sam Tarly is by far a more interesting character for me to analyze. And the house to put him in was actually an easy one for me. Totally not properly valued by his father and dumped to the wall, Sam thinks himself as a coward. Although he did show that when the going gets tough, he can show bravery. He's also a bit cunning, but in a good way, when he takes his vow to the letter, when he states that his oath says that he has to protect the people of the kingdoms of men, and that the wildlings, as human beings, do fall under his protection as well as a result. He also shows wisdom that many times, and his wisdom and devotion got Jon Snow back on track more than once. His true quality, however, is his intelligence, and it was only fitting that he'd be trained to become a maester, and I have heard that he would eventually even become a Grand Maester. With that, Sam will be the first character I will put into the house of Rowena Ravenclaw. To be honest, I'm surprised how long it took to put someone in that house, and when you think about it, this may actually tell us something about the situation in Westeros. Sansa Stark is what I would call in Dutch a kutwijf. And no other house was fitting to put her in than Slytherin. Yeah, hate me all you want, burn me, roast me, puke on me. It wouldn't matter at all, as Sansa is just a despicable bitch, and that's it. She's rude, only cares about herself, and actually finds herself a good teacher in Cercei Lannister. Although the advice to learn to use the weapon she has between her legs appears to go too far, she appears to be a good teacher. And to Petyr Baelish she also shows herself a good apprentice, and not just only because he feels sexually attracted to her. Although she won't allow him into sex, but she seems well aware of his affections and is certainly not above using that against him. Yep, very clear case. Slytherin it is. Shireen Baratheon might well be one of the sweetest characters in this story, making me only more upset about her horrible death. But of course, what she did in life defines in which house she should be. Living in isolation due to her being heavily scarred, she appears to have educated herself in reading and also in understanding the stuff she reads about, even from books a girl her age should normally not understand at all, which really shows that her intelligence belies her age. She also managed to teach an old man, which would be Davos Seaworth, to read, and that also shows her patience. So only one of the female founders would do for her, but her intelligence did in the end astound me the most, so I could only put her into Ravenclaw, and you will need exceptional argumentation to get me to take you seriously if you disagree with me on that one. When it comes to Stannis Baratheon, there's no need to beat around the bush. Only Slytherin will do. Obsessed with his right to the throne after Robert was murdered, he goes to great lengths to get it, and even getting into dark magic to murder the people he claims to be usurpers. And Davos finds out that the hard way that trying to talk some sense into him might well be as interesting as talking to a rock. I guess this is also why he could so easily be manipulated by Melissandre. Ambition is not always a good thing, I guess. Let's be clear about it, this man could never be a good king, he's just a power-obsessed fool. But his ambition is of course one of the main things that Slytherin is about, so Slytherin it will be. Theon Greyjoy might have betrayed the Starks, but let's be frank, he only did so because he lacks the courage and strength to stand up against his father. He has no courage at all, and he knew it. He also lacked the leadership skills, which shows when his speech only leads to him getting knocked out with I thought he'd never shut up. Well, he's a total failure in everything he does, but perhaps his actual quality was always something nobody would acknowledge in a realm like Westeros. I cannot judge his intelligence or lack thereof, as he never gets the chance to show he has it or lacks it, making it impossible for me to consider Ravenclaw. For both Gryffindor and Slytherin, however, he fails miserably. I hate saying it, but I fear only Helga Hufflepuff will take him in. Out of pity. Tyrion Lannister is a headstall. In Harry Potter lore, a headstall means that the Sorting Hat needed more than 5 minutes to come to a decision. Well, in the case of Tyrion Lannister, I have been thinking for months. He's not just a headstall, he is a super headstall. Believe it or not, but Tyrion has the qualities to do well in all 4 houses. Not to mention that he shows himself both a villain and a good guy. He is a hard worker, and all the work he's been given will be executed in perfection. His father even sarcastically remarked that the sewers were never so clean as when Tyrion was in charge of them. Though it's work everybody looks down on, he still does it to the best of his abilities. As a true Lannister, he always pays his debts, and he selflessly donates a special saddle for Bran so he can ride a horse after he gets crippled. that would plead for Hufflepuff. He also shows himself a warrior in his own right, even though his smaller body does not allow him to be an actual fighter. He's not afraid to risk his life in order to stand up for what is right. So yeah, he also does show himself a Gryffindor more than once. He also might be one of the most intelligent characters in the entire series, digging in stuff only a few have the ability to properly understand. If he would qualify for Ravenclaw, then who would? And like the rest of the Lannister family, he can be very cunning and is not above manipulating people for his own interest, and that would plead for Slytherin. And none of all this really stand out to the others, which makes him, of course, a very good character, my favorite character in the entire series even. But on moments like these, such characters are the ones giving me a true headache. I must make a choice, and I think I'll stick with Slytherin, although I cannot really stand by that one. But, well, the latter would also be the case if I went for Gryffindor, Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw, so does it really matter? Tywin Lannister is just a first-class asshole, going for the status of his family. Most of all, himself. Always letting others do the dirty work and, in the end, taking all the credit for it. And not even his own children and grandchildren are spared in how he exploits people, only to be better off in the end himself, and Tyrion in particular, whom he holds responsible for the death of his wife, since she died when Tyrion was born, is exploited the most, and, well, he even goes so far to steal his son's girlfriend, which would ultimately be his demise. Of course, it doesn't require much imagination that Slytherin is the only house I can place him in. And Varys was also in Slytherin, although he is quite more honorable than Tywin. Yet he is serving the realm, or at least he claims so. He gets his information by sneaking and manipulating. Not to mention that revenge is sweet if you have the stomach to bear it, and he speaks about the one who removed his genitals, really shows that he is not above doing horrible things out of pure vengeance. So he might not be the first-rate asshole Tywin is, but in the end, he is a worthy Slytherin. And the last one will be Walder Frey, Slytherin, so that's easy. I mean, he's a first-rate coward. Always let the others do the work for him. Not that he always takes the credit, but he does only do things if he can get better from it to other people's expense. So that is actually a very clear case. Slytherin it is. And that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. I hope you agree with my sortings. If not, then I'd like to hear your motivation why to put people in another house. If you think some characters I didn't put in should not have been left out, let me know. Like I said, I wouldn't do them all as there are simply too many. I am going to take my leave of you now. See you another time. And goodbye.